All right. Well, Alyssa, choose. I'm going to kick us off we're going to do a little miniature episode, a little miniature Q&A episode. So these are just short little Q&As that we have received from Instagram. And as always, we tell you guys all the time, if you guys have other questions or topics that you would like to hear us talk about, just pop over to the Candid Creative Podcast Instagram channel or shoot us an email or go comment on Alyssa's Flowering Minds Reddit thread. All right.
Only if you have something mean to say, though.
Okay. Question number 1. How long did it take you guys to feel like your companies really took off? Sometimes people ask me that and I'm like, has it taken off?
To me, I feel like obviously the measurement is relative based on everyone's goals and stuff. But my thought on this is probably it took off when you're no longer stressing about your bills.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, that's like the first step. And then you start making your goals bigger.
Correct. No, I totally agree. That's what I was going to say too, actually, where I was like, that's such a hard question to answer personally, because depending on what goals you set for yourself and what your idea of success is, an idea of like taking off is, what could look like you have the most successful business in the world to one person, to me might not look at all like that. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I do feel, but to your point, I feel like probably in my like 6th year of business, did I feel like, okay, I'm really happy with every single job I'm getting. I'm really happy with how much I'm charging. I'm really happy with this and this and this. So I would say like in my 6th year. That said though, also that's so dependent. I can't tell someone else like by year 6, you'll totally be feeling it. Because again, 1, I'm super hard on myself and I set very lofty goals. And 2, I also am a workaholic. So what I believe I got done in 6 years, I think was a good chunk because I'm borderline delusional in the goals that I want to hit. So I don't know. I think it's very relative.
Yeah. I also think that obviously like how you're starting matters. Like for me, I was making enough money my first year, but that's because I had been a florist for 12 years at that point and had worked for so many people. I saw what worked. I saw what didn't work. So I kind of like got a running start.
Totally.
But then I did, and I had a lot of relationships where I started my business, but then we moved and it was like starting from scratch and it was crickets. And that was like the biggest struggle I have ever experienced. So then I kind of had to like start a business over again where I had no relationships, which felt more like the beginning of my business. The real struggle. So for me, it was probably like 4 years.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But yeah, again, that's being relentless.
Yeah.
We talked about that in an episode recently. Yeah. But I, like you, I'm very relentless too. So I reached out to you multiple times. I reached out to so many planners. I got so many coffees. I did so many styled shoots. Yep. I was as social as I could possibly be. Yep. Because, in my opinion, relationships make a huge difference when you are working locally and, you can potentially be working with the same people over and over again. So yeah, it totally depends on the actions you take and how hard you go at it.
Yep, exactly. I don't think it's a one size fits all. And again, if one person's trying to get into the luxury market and one person is trying to get into the mid-range market, like that will make a massive difference on what you think taking off looks like.
Right.
Okay. Next question. Okay. We actually got 2 similar to this. How do you deal with difficult clients? And then the second part of it said, the ungrateful, never happy, consistently changing their minds type and rude on the day of. So they sound like assholes. Who are these people you're attracting? Change your marketing strategies. Change
I've
who
never
you're
really
attracting.
had. Yeah, I can't think of like a client that I've really had that's been like that. I've definitely had clients that weren't my favorite humans, but I've never really had anyone that's like outwardly rude on a regular basis. But I will say, there's clients who just kind of have a bad vibe, like they're kind of looking for problems. Yeah. And I'll say in that instance, I ignore all of their emotions and I'm like, I'm responding to facts only. Like I refuse to respond to their emotions. I just don't. I hear the words they're saying and I translate it into my head as though there's no tone. And then I just give them a factual answer, non-emotional, but kind. Smart. I'm not like talking to them like a robot, but yeah, I just ignore their emotions.
I do feel like when all else fails, just strip emotion out of it and think like a robot. Yeah. Honestly.
Yeah.
Just facts. Just facts and logic and facts.
And you don't need to over explain. That's the other thing. Like, for example, I've had people be like, well, this client, wants me to put a mantelpiece, wants me to do flowers on a mantle. And I said, okay, well, that's going to be $1,000. And they said, well, we don't think it should be more, like more money. And I'm like, well, it doesn't really matter. Like that doesn't have to make you feel emotional. Just respond to them. You don't have to even acknowledge everything they're saying if it doesn't make sense. You just say, since the flowers do cost me, it will be $1,000. Like you just literally repeat yourself. Yeah, unemotionally.
People feel like they have to justify everything. I just did a post about this recently on My Income Monthly where I was like, stop feeling like you have to justify the prices you've made.
Explain it.
Yeah, you charging money for a business is business by definition. It's like what you're doing. You don't have to have an excuse or a justification for every price you want to put on anything. That's your prerogative. You get to charge whatever you want to charge. And even if it is 4 times as much as someone else thinks it should be, it literally doesn't matter.
Yeah. And you just respond to them with options that are real options. So like I've had this, not necessarily this exact situation, but I've had situations where clients were kind of like emotionally arguing with me. And what I would say is not like, no, we can't do that because this. What I would say is just kind of ignore everything they're saying, not necessarily respond to every point and just say, well, because of the cost, our options are, we could do the mantle, it would be $1,000. Or if you feel like you don't want to add that to your budget, you're welcome to bring candles for the mantle. Like, I don't need to be the provider of that. If you want to cut costs there, I'm happy to have you bring candles or give an option that's like this or this. Like, I'm not going to give in to this argument.
I actually think that that's such a great point, is just giving options. That's what I do a lot of the time with design, is people are like, what do you do when a client doesn't want to spend that much on design? And I say, well, here are the facts. You can spend this much and get this design. Or you can spend less and have a different design. So I will always give options like, if this is the design and it costs $300,000 to do all of these things, but if you don't want to spend that, we can cut A, B, and C, and it can be $250, but you won't have the same design. You get to decide. And then I like put it back in my client's hand of like, well, you get to make the decision. Do you want to spend the money and have it look this way? Or do you not want to spend the money and have it look this way? Totally up to you. At the end of the day, like it is your decision, but these are the facts. This is how much this costs. And this is how much this would cost. So these are the other options that you can do.
Right. And it's not emotional. Like you don't need to. And that's also, I'd like to add, that's how I speak to my toddler. I'm like, he's like, I don't want to brush my teeth. I'm like, okay, you can either brush your teeth or your teeth can rot. And this is what it looks like. And I show them pictures. Like, this is what happens when you don't brush your teeth. Would you like your teeth to fall out? Or would you like to just brush your teeth right now?
Honestly, I've heard some of the conversations that Alyssa has with Django. Like, she'll send me a voice recording and then Django will ask for something and she'll respond to him. And it's always the most logical, like, humane, grown-up conversation. Just like that. Like, what would you, this is how it looks when your teeth fall out. Is this what you want? Oh, okay. Well, then this is how I want
to go to the dentist more. Yeah. Like, it's your option. It's your choice, truly, because I'm not going to hold you down and brush your teeth. So like, do you want, or even if it's something, I mean, how I talk to clients is it's a similar thing where you're just trying to avoid arguments.
Yeah.
And fights. Yeah. And you're like, if he's like, I don't want to put my shoes on and we have to leave, I'll be like, then you don't want to go swimming with this friend. Like, do you want to go swimming or do you want to stay home shoeless? Right. I don't actually make him put shoes on. This is a bad example. I don't care if you wear shoes or not, but just speak to them in facts.
Yeah. But as far as having also a rude client, I feel like the only clients I can really think of I had one pretty like monstrous client, but I think it was my second year in business, and you don't read red flags as well back then.
Right.
And yeah, she was a really mean person, but I just learned from it. I again took emotion out of it, just did my job really well, and was like, well, not everyone's gonna like me. Or I've had a sneak attack where I've like talked to a bride a lot, and or even talked to a groom a lot or something, and then got on site the week of, or had a call the month of or something, and it's just been like a flip has been switched, and there's just this like monster in the room. And again, I just ignore it. I'm just like, I'm just going to do my job. Like, what you being rude to me does not actually affect my quality of life. I might not like it. It might not feel great, personal, but it's temporary too. Like, and it's really not you're full on disrespecting me. And we talked about this a little bit.
Or harassing.
Yes. There's a difference between just like being rude or someone being like unpleasant, or someone full on disrespecting and making it harder for me to do my job. Like if you're actually making it harder for me to do my job by disrespecting me, then we will need to sit down and have a conversation, or I need to pull you aside and say, this can't happen. I'm going to leave if this continues.
Right.
But I think those are you kind of have to just like shut yourself off from taking it personally and just know that this is temporary. You just have to get through it and then learn what you can learn from it.
Yeah. And I would say this regarding everything in business, that like your life is just so much better when you don't take things personally, like anything. Like even because I feel like if you own a business and you're in a community of other business owners, like we are as wedding vendors, if you like, people are not going to like you, but honestly, it's not even personal. Like there's just something about you that bothers them, but it's because of, it's like them. It's like, it doesn't mean, so it's like, it's okay for people not to like you. It doesn't really matter.
Unless nobody likes you, and then it might be a you problem, and you should be self-aware enough to think, I seem to really be offending a lot of people. Yeah. Do I like how that makes me feel? And if you don't care, if it doesn't make you feel any way that no one likes you, then cool, keep doing it. But also, if it bothers you that you have no friends, then you may want to look at yourself and say, what could I change so I'd offend less people? It's all about being self-aware and making a decision based on how you would like to feel moving forward.
Yeah. If everyone's the asshole, you're probably the asshole.
You're probably the asshole. Exactly.
If there's just a few assholes here or there, then probably no one's the asshole, and everyone just needs to move on. Yeah.
Everyone has someone that doesn't like them, and it's an art to accept that, but that makes
you
human.
Anyone, any business or anyone we've ever called out on this podcast, not that we've like called people, we never have called people out, but I just mean like people we've mentioned or whatever and like kind of laughed about things. It's never a serious thing. Like
I would still get drinks with most of those people.
I would just be like, hey, do you hear what I say? Do you hear what I said about you? Do you like that?
Do you want to talk about it?
It's meaningless.
I agree.
Most of the time.
I think people are allowed to have opinions. They don't all have to make us feel butterflies inside.
Yeah, just because all DJs shave their heads and drive tiny square cars doesn't mean we don't like you.
It doesn't mean we don't like you.
Every single DJ does that. Means nothing. It's not a big deal.
Next question. This person says, someone says, what are your thoughts on taking commission?
Well, we have different perspectives. You've never asked me for commission. I don't know that you do that from vendors, do you?
I don't. Here's my thing. If I think commissions are fine as a kickback. I don't think decisions for business should be based on them. But commissions are like they're fairly normal actually in a lot of different cultures and areas of the world for wedding industry. I think it's when it starts to become like a really shady sort of gray situation where you're saying like, you need to pay me more for me to hire you, but don't tell the client that you're paying me more. It's when it gets weird like that. I've definitely had vendors that I work with who, especially like in Mexico, a lot of vendors just naturally give commission to anyone who brings them on. It's totally normal there. And it's just like part of their culture. A lot of the time, honestly, I pass any break I get, I pass to my clients. Like I charge enough that like, I don't charge based on getting commission from people. So if someone gives me a kickback at the end of the job, cool, there's that. If someone gives me a discount, a lot of rental companies will just give you like a planner's discount. I'll just pass that to my client. It's not like I like upcharge and then, but I just think as long as you're not being shady about it and as long as you're not choosing vendors based on that, I think is
most of the time they do though.
I think so too. They're like, here are the 10 people I work with.
But planners say they'll work with me if I give them a commission. And I was like, I don't think so. And they never hired me.
I think that's slimy.
But I'm just like, I don't want to, it's like, especially for floral design. And I'm sure every vendor will come back and be like, well, me too. But it's so product heavy. Like at the end of the day, it's like, I'm not making that much money.
Totally.
For the amount of product and exhaustion and labor. I mean, it's just like, I don't really want to work with, it's just a personal preference.
Yes.
I just don't want to give away more of it.
Yes. I agree.
I honestly, it doesn't seem ever to be in that much. So I'm like, why?
Yes,
you just want like $200 extra dollars?
That's absolutely insane.
I don't know.
I feel like the problem is again, it's one thing if it's normal. So like if it's normal in Italy to give commissions or whatever, and so you just kind of, that's what is almost expected and it happens. If you build your business on, I'm telling my clients that I only cost $10,000, but really I cost $30,000, but I make up the other 20 in these commissions that I get from all these people. And I don't tell my client that. So I look really cheap to them, which in my opinion, like devalues how much planners should be. So I look really cheap to this client, but I'm getting all this money from these vendors and I'll only work with these vendors based on this commission. So I'm also doing I'm doing my client a disservice because I'm only choosing from the pool of vendors who will pay me. And I'm doing the industry a disservice because now I'm basically saying planners are $10,000 because clients don't know otherwise.
Right. True.
It seems like it's hurting things on every side. So if you build your business in a way that you don't need the commissions, it's a cherry on top or it's something you can pass along to your clients or whatever. It's more of a kickback situation, but you don't require it. To me, that's one thing. If someone says, there's an officiant actually in Mexico, super, super sweet officiant. And I don't even know what he charges, hardly anything. And then after each job, he goes, oh, here's my commission check to you for hiring me as a kickback. I had no idea going into
goodwill.
It. Totally. He basically was just saying thank you. And he did it in a, monetary fashion. I don't think you have to do that. I just don't think planners should be building their businesses necessarily around that. But that's also like my personal preference. I don't know. Right. I know it's been happening for a long time in a lot of countries. I just don't think if it comes at a cost to your client, like your client is potentially getting worse vendors or, I also, like I said, I think it does a disservice to the industry. Then I think that there's a time to question it. But do I just think commission as a whole is bad? I mean, put a different name on it, call it a kickback, and do we still think it's bad?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Or affiliate.
Yeah, honestly. Yes. Or affiliate. Yes, exactly.
But in that case, like for affiliate, it kind of works both ways. Like it would be nice if it was like, oh, the florist recommended this planner, so that obviously the florist gets the kickback, but I think it's just because a lot of times it's like the planner will only work with you if you do that.
Yes.
Another thing about commission is a lot of times I think the vendors will be kind of like resentful towards it. And I think that the client will actually like be hurt by it in a way of like the vendors aren't going to be as willing to go above and beyond because they're like losing. So like, when I work with you or really anyone, if the week of the wedding is there, I'm designing and I'm like, these designs really need this garden rose that I didn't budget for. I'll just go get it. Yeah. I'll just pay for it out of pocket. Yeah. I'll go over budget. Now, if you were like, and I do expect my $600 check, I'd be like, I'm not paying for this out of pocket. Exactly. Like I'm not going above and beyond because I'm already giving you money.
Exactly.
There's always a little wiggle room. I get that. Like there's a few $100s. You're like, fine, I guess I could give this to you. But yeah, I'd rather have it to give to the client.
And I think that that bodes well for planners too.
Yeah. Makes you look better because then the designs that are brought are
better.
fixed. or whatever, upgraded.
Yes. Yeah. And they don't feel like they're having to cut you a check afterwards either. I just worked with a production company who came in just higher than they needed to be and had previously told me by the way, we give a 10% commission or whatever. And I was like, I don't care either way. I don't do whatever you want to do. But we got to the point where we came to the final quote and I was like, this is $6,000 over what I need it to be at. And they just took it off. They just said, okay, we'll just discount it because we still want to do it for you. And we think we believe in this design, so we want to make it happen for you. I would rather work with vendors who are going to bend over backwards for me and my client and charge enough that I don't depend on that $6,000 coming back from my pocket. I charge enough that I don't need that. Would that be a nice bonus? Yeah. But also I want my design for my client to be freaking incredible. And then that will book me more jobs in the future because the design will be even better. I just no judgment either way. I just think build your business so that you don't have to get paid based on other people.
I'm judging.
Alyssa's judging. Okay.
I've got nothing to lose.
A last question. I have a client who's changing her mind constantly on inspo, styling, direction, advice. How would I handle this delicately?
I think it's nipping it in the bud before it starts. Personally, I think that's the best time to kind of set boundaries for how working with you works for me personally. Obviously it doesn't work 100% of the time, but I do think that vendors too often just sign a client and then give them no guidance on next steps moving forward and how to deal with new ideas, what to do, where to put it, when to talk about it. So in my opinion, right when they sign, you give them rules. They don't have to feel like rules, but you just say, okay, next steps moving forward. This is how it goes.
This is how this works.
Yeah. It's your business. Yep. You set the terms for how working with you works. But so many times people are just, again, it's the assumption. Well, I say again, because we recorded a podcast episode about this, but you never want to assume anything about reality, says the conspiracy theorist. That's not what I mean, but I do mean that too. But you never want to assume anything about reality. Oh, okay, this is they sign and then it just is what it is. Then I have to deal with their personalities. No, it's your business. You set the rules.
You dictate it.
Yeah. This is the business process. It's not I hire a roofer and then I'm I paid you. The roof needs to be fixed today. It's he's no, I have to order things. I have to take measurements. I go by his timeline, not mine. So same roofs are on the mind because my roof is destroyed. But
yeah, right. No, I totally agree. That's what I always say too is anything that you keep running into like that, if you keep running into a client who wants to change design constantly, what can you put into your workflow? We talked about problem solving earlier. How can you solve this problem? If this is a problem you keep running into, work your way backwards. What can you put into your workflow so that this doesn't happen again? Usually what that is you need to put some kind of welcome packet or next steps or a reoccurring email that goes out every month saying just so you know, this is what's happening next. You need to prove that you have processes, that you actually aren't just floating around and taking things day by day, but that you actually have a workflow and a process that people don't question. I feel once I put very specific workflows in place and made those clear with my clients of here are the next steps. Here's my welcome packet. Here's what happens next. Here's what your checklist, whatever it is. And they understood that I have a system I'm working off of, which means, for me, I start design at 10 months. Your design is finished by 8 months. I present the design to you. We can make tweaks at that time and then it's finalized. Period. That's how the process goes. And that's all you have to do. You just have to talk about it. It is the standard. It's not a question. And if you present it that way, then your clients don't look at it like they can change their mind every 2 days. So you have to set the standard.
Right. And I don't do this when I work with planners because the planners I work with tend to already be doing this with their clients, and I'm not the one communicating with the client all the time. But if I am working directly with a client and there isn't a planner in between us, I do tell them, I give them a place. You can tell them it's a shared Google Doc or something to record their new ideas. But I do this because they will literally talk themselves out of the idea a few months later for a new idea. So I'll say like, record all your ideas here. It's shared. I will see it, but we will, this is when we're going to meet next. Maybe it's 4 months before the wedding. It's plenty of time to talk about different ideas. And in my head, I know they will have probably already gone through 10 ideas. I did not have to go back and forth with them about that aren't even their ideas anymore.
Totally.
And I just assure them like, talking about this, and I'll even say like, it's very normal to, trends change, trends go on fire, trends die in the course up to your wedding. Yeah. And if you're still looking at Pinterest, you're going to be inundated with ideas. So you're always welcome to share them on here, but we're not going to have a conversation every time because it doesn't actually make progress at the end of the day.
Exactly. Yep.
And they tend to be fine with that. Like if you explain it in a way, if you feel like you need to explain it, again, never over explain yourself, but.
Yep. Totally. Agreed. Well, those are our 5 questions. There's our mini episode. If you guys have any questions, submit them on Instagram, candidcreativepodcast.com, or Alyssa's Flowering Mind Reddit thread. Feel free to ask us any questions and we will answer most of them.
And rate us 5 stars. If you kind of like us, if you like us a lot, if you don't like us at all, give us 5 stars.
There's no other option.
If you don't like us, give us 5 stars, but you can go air your grievances over at my Reddit thread, Flowering Minds. And we'll read what you have to say.
Yeah, we will. We'll read what you have to say. So, all right, that's it for now. Goodbye.
Bye.